our Secretary of the Army. Thank you for being here, man. I want to welcome our Chief of Staff. Our Chief of Staff of the Army, General McConville, thanks for being here. Sergeant Major of the Army, thank you for being here. And all our other distinguished guests, and there are many distinguished guests here today, and welcome and thank you for joining us. For many years now, it's been our custom to honor the most senior leadership of the Army who are seated up front here, and I do want to, again, thank these incredible leaders, and would also like to recognize the other services that are here. We have quite a few other services that are here. Would you please stand, and we'll recognize the other services here. And as I mentioned, a number of special guests, but I think the most special we have here among the guests are all active Command Sergeants Major. Please stand up and be recognized. Our Sergeants Major. We all know that's what makes us the greatest Army in the world. We're so grateful for their service, incredible sacrifice, unbelievable. Well, welcome also to the non-commissioned officers and soldiers of the year at their home stations. Our drill sergeant of the year. Recruiter and career counselors of the year. New this year, the best squad competitors. And so, once again, with all these individuals that I just named, please stand up and let us recognize you again. Even more, they're the reason we're here. Look at that. So glad to have you with us, and again, thanks for all your hard work representing your command so well. So we're also honored to have a number of general officers representing many of our friends and allies from around the world today. Would all of you please stand to be recognized? Our friends and allies. Thanks so much for joining us. 90 countries here with us. It's just fantastic. Well, traditionally, the Army Chief of Staff and Sergeant Major of the Army have used this venue to make presentations of Army awards to the outstanding soldiers we just recognized. So General McConville and Sergeant Major of the Army Grinson, will you please position yourselves on the stage?
Would the recipient of the Stephen Ailes Ralph Haynes Jr. Award please come to the stage? The Stephen Ailes Ralph Haynes Jr. Award is presented annually by the Department of the Army to the Outstanding Drill Sergeant. This year, outstanding drill sergeants representing all the United States Army training centers competed in a headquarters U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command competition for this coveted award. The 2022 Army Active Component Drill Sergeant of the Year is Staff Sergeant Krista E. Osborne. The 2022 Army Reserve Component Drill Sergeant of the Year is Staff Sergeant Lauren A. Pope. Would the recipients of the General Maxwell Thurman Recruiting Excellence Award please come to the stage? The General Maxwell Thurman Recruiting Excellence Award is given each year to the Army Recruiters of the Year. During General Thurman's tenure as commander of the U.S. Army Recruiting Command, he significantly improved the quality of Army enlistees and helped create the professional Army of today. And he played a key role in fostering the public's positive perceptions of America's Army and its great soldiers. His influence left a mark on Army recruiting and set high standards for today's Army recruiters. The non-commissioned officers selected as the top Army recruiters for 2022. From the regular Army, Staff Sergeant Noel Dacre. And from the United States Army Reserve, Sergeant First Class Giovanna Avila. Would the recipients of the Army Retention Excellence Awards please come to the stage? The Excellence in Retention Award is given each year to the Career Counselors of the Year. Retaining the very best soldiers is critical to the Army's mission of growing and developing leaders for the future. Career counselors support Army commanders by identifying and counseling soldiers and non-commissioned officers of their value to the force and potential to serve in positions of increased responsibility in today's and tomorrow's complex world. The non-commissioned officers selected as the top Army Career Counselors for 2022. The Active Component Career Counselor of the Year is Sergeant First Class Nicole S. Palmer. The Reserve Component Transition Career Counselor of the Year is Sergeant First Class Sean T. Griffin. The Army Reserve Career Counselor of the Year is Sergeant First Class Mark W. Mercer. This year, the Army hosted its first ever Best Squad competition to find the most highly trained, disciplined, fit, and cohesive team. The winning squad is United States Army Special Operations Command. Staff Sergeant Devin Simpson, Specialist Nathan Wallen, Specialist Jake Reichman, Specialist Coy Anderson, and Sergeant Jonathan Warren.
Hey, hold on.
Hey.
Where are you? Stand up.
Stand up.
Okay, Chief. Take the music down, do something. I don't know. Sir, I think it's only fair. I think there's no way. We need these specialists to be sergeants to go train more squads.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to promote it,
Okay.
Come on.
Hey.
Promotion. Come on, Chief. Come on, Chief.
You know, here's the deal. It's great to be chief. Not only do you serve with the world's greatest soldiers, but you get to promote the world's greatest soldiers. Specialists, come on up here and get promoted to sergeant. Who are?
Bring the whole squad.
Come on up here. Bring the whole squad. Bring the whole squad. Come on up here.
I got a feeling you're going to be out of
Come on up
rank
here.
all day long.
All right, that's all right. You'll be out of uniform, but
Okay, sergeants behind them, and
Yeah, why don't you come behind them? Okay.
hey, let's remove those jackets. All we got is shoulder boards, so I don't know. You're not going to be wearing the jacket for the rest. I hope you got big guns and you didn't have anything weird on your shirt.
You got anything underneath there? You got shirts underneath there? How you want?
Yeah, you're taking it off because I just told you to take it off.
You don't have. You're not going to have. Okay, we'll put them on the. You want to put them on those? All right.
Pretty short time, sir, Major.
Well, it's too late now. Hey, sir.
Okay. It's pretty cool, huh? Yeah. Okay.
Those guns just can't come out.
I know. Okay, let's go ahead, son.
Let's go, sir. How about you help me out?
You want to do the other side? Okay. You take that side. I'll take this side here.
You can call him like Tom or something. You know, you're both sergeants.
Well done.
Thank you, sir.
Probably not happening.
Proud of you.
Thank you, sir.
Look at that. I'm gonna get rid of this.
Okay.
Some shit going on. You got two more? No? You got the other one? No, here you go. That's awesome. Congratulations. Thanks, Sergeant.
We'll go ahead and take the specialist rank off too while we're at it. Congratulations. We're proud of you, okay?
Sergeant.
We'll give this to some PFC that's deserving.
You can't put the jacket on. You got the wrong rank on, Sergeant. Okay, one more round of applause. Isn't that awesome?
All right. Proud of you guys, all right? Proud of you. Proud of you. Great squad.
Throughout the competition, the soldiers and NCOs were also evaluated on individual merit to determine the Army's Soldier and NCO of the Year. The Army's Soldier of the Year is Specialist Samuel Alvarez from ForceCom.
I didn't call you up here. It's only fair, though, right? He's like, Sergeant Major, you promoted every... Come back up. I'm just messing with you. It's only fair, Chief. We got to promote him.
We got to promote him.
You got somebody with you? Where's the Surgeon General? No? Anybody? What unit? Next guy? Strike. There you go. I knew somebody was going to... We got to have somebody. Man, that was scary. Back off. Back off. Back off, paratrooper. Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Take your thing off here.
Get promoted by the Chief of Staff, the Sergeant Major of the Army, and the 18th Airborne Corps Sergeant.
Good day, huh?
This stuff is falling everywhere.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
You really like the specialist rank. It's really hard to come off.
Yeah.
Here, hold you in that.
Yeah, you're going to go back to your team and give some PFC deserving your rank, okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, don't worry about it. Don't flinch at me. Good job. One more time.
Okay. We have like a trophy.
Yeah, he already got it.
Yeah, you got it.
The Army's NCO of the Year is Sergeant Garrett Paulson of MedCom.
guys want to proto, don't you? Okay, no. Come on, one more round of applause for the NCO.
All right.
Hey, you're awesome. Okay, next.
Well, I'm not sure you can top that. That's a pretty tough act to follow. Thanks again. Let's hear it again for those outstanding soldiers. Well, today we are honored to have with us our 40th Chief of Staff of the Army. And since becoming Chief of Staff more than 3 years ago, General James McConville has been very clear about his top priority, people. And we're very fortunate to have General McConville as our Chief of Staff during these challenging times. His clear priority of people has been absolutely critical to ensure the Army's greatest assets, its soldiers, are properly trained, equipped, and ready for any challenge ahead. The Chief of Staff is also building the Army of the future with the 6 modernization priorities that are clearly the key to ensuring we remain the greatest Army in the world. So it gives me great pleasure to present General James McConville, Chief of Staff, United States Army.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to all, and a special thanks to my friend and West Point classmate, General Bob Brown, and his whole team for putting together this great event. You know, it's wonderful to get back to the Eisenhower Luncheon with lunch again. Like Napoleon said, an army marches on its stomach. And I know many of you did not come, I know many of you came here for the food and not for the speech, so enjoy the lunch, okay? You know, I know all of our VIPs have been introduced, so what I will say is I'm very blessed to serve in such a talented Army leadership team under our 25th Secretary of the Army, Secretary Christine Warmoth. Ma'am, thank you for your leadership. How about a hand for our Secretary? And our great Sergeant Major of the Army, Tony Grinston. What an incredible NCO, what a leader. Thank you for your leadership. And I do want to introduce 2 of the former chiefs. General Reimer and General Shinseki, sir and gentlemen, thank you for your support and leadership. The United States Army exists for one purpose: to protect the nation by being ready to fight and win the nation's wars as a member of the joint force. We can do and have done other missions, like responding to COVID, assisting in securing the southwest border, helping communities recover from natural disasters such as Hurricane Ian, or even driving buses. And this is important work, and we're truly proud to do it. But there is only one reason why our Army exists, and our purpose is to be ready to fight and win the nation's wars, and we can never forget that. And did I mention that winning matters? And I think it's appropriate that this is the Eisenhower Luncheon. You know, most people probably remember General Eisenhower as the supreme Allied commander during World War II, or the President of the United States. But I'm constantly reminded of him as the Chief of Staff of the Army, because I live in his old house at Quarters 1 on Fort Myer. And every day that I'm home, I walk by the Eisenhower bedroom, literally where Ike slept when he lived there. And his portrait hangs over the mantle. And it's uncanny to see how his eyes seem to follow you wherever you go in the room. He's looking at me right now. He's saying, McConnell, don't screw up this speech. But, you know, he seems to be telling us to make sure we get the Army of 2030 right so we can win the future, because Ike knows that winning matters. And what's also interesting is right next to his portrait is an old rotary phone in a display case. It's actually the phone he used at his headquarters during World War II. There was no FaceTiming for Ike. And as some of you may know from my previous speeches, I think the telephone is a great example of transformational change versus incremental improvement. Phone companies incrementally improved that rotary phone for many decades. The transformational change that came when innovators decided a telephone could also be a camera, a GPS device, or even a computer. Can you imagine 20 years ago a lieutenant or sergeant coming into a general and saying, hey, I got a great idea. We're going to take pictures with our phones. And we would have said, yeah, that's why you're a lieutenant or sergeant. But they would have known, so listen to your sergeants and your lieutenants. We are not incrementally improving the Army. We are transforming it from the post-9/11 era to an Army that is ready to fight and win in large-scale combat operations. Because it's not about fighting the last fight better. It's about being able to win the next fight so decisively that no one wants to fight us. And to do this, we have set clear priorities: people, readiness, and modernization. And we have relentlessly pursued these priorities with consistency and persistence. And we are living in very challenging and dangerous times. China is building a world-class military to challenge the United States and the world order. North Korea, Iran, and violent extremists remain persistent threats. And when Russia in February attacked Ukraine, a sovereign country, without provocation, the United States Army was ready to respond and support our European allies and partners. We were ready because we had the right priorities and the right posture in place. And when I say ready, I'm not just talking about tactical readiness of our units. I'm also talking about the strategic readiness of our Army, the Joint Force, and our allies and partners. And a good example of this is the tactical and strategic readiness. A good example is the deployment of the 1st Armored Brigade Combat Team from the 3rd Infantry Division. When they were ordered to Europe last February, it took less than 1 week to get the entire brigade from the United States to live fire exercises in Germany. Now, I actually planned to go down to Savannah and see them off, but quite frankly, they were gone before I could get there. And this is what the nation expects from us. This speaks volumes about the soldiers of the Raider Brigade, our Army logisticians, but a lot of other things had to happen to make this possible. The Army's been working with our allies and partners in investing and setting the European theater for years. And what we are seeing now is a return on that investment. We can surge troops, but we can't surge trust. And I want to personally recognize and thank all of our allies and partners that are here at AUSA this week for working closely with us to make this happen. So I wish all our allies and partners, can you stand up and we can recognize you? Please. All our allies and partners, please stand up. Thank you all. Thanks to those relationships, we're able to invest in Army position stocks, not just in Europe, but globally. We have ensured that that equipment we have staged around the world is modern, it's well-maintained, and it's ready to go. When combat units don't have to load all their equipment onto ships, that gives us speed in response. And we have invested in elevating the United States Army Europe and Africa to a four-star command, along with other key commands like 5th Corps, a Theater Fires Command, and a multi-domain task force. These commands matter to our allies and partners, and they matter to our adversaries. We made these investments because there will always be a critical role for combat-credible ground forces around the world. And I've traveled to Europe 3 times since Russia invaded Ukraine. I've been to Germany, I've been to Poland, I've been to the Baltics, and I've been to the UK. I've met with over 30 of my counterparts. And the feedback I get every time is that there is no substitute for having American soldiers on the ground for both reassurance and deterrence. And we are giving our full support to Ukraine and paying very close attention to what is happening there. You know, history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but what we can learn a lot from Ukraine. Just like our senior leaders learned from the 1973 Arab-Israeli War. That's how they built the army we've been fighting with for the past 40 years. The doctrine, the organizations, the big five weapon systems that the Army won Desert Storm with so decisively. And this week marks a major milestone in our transformation to the future. Taking into account the lessons learned from Ukraine, we are releasing the long-awaited update to Field Manual 3.0 Operations, the most significant change in Army doctrine since airland battle. FM 3.0 codifies multi-domain operations from an operational concept to our official capstone doctrine. It recognizes that the Army will be contested in every domain, in air, land, sea, space, and cyber, and that the future Army must be prepared to fight in multiple domains at once. We must be able to get from fort to foxhole in a contested environment anywhere in the world. Executing multi-domain operations means having highly trained soldiers in all environments. And that's why we reactivated the historic 11th Airborne Division in Alaska this past June. The Arctic Angels of the 11th Airborne Division are training to be masters of their craft in Arctic warfare, who will not only survive but thrive in extreme cold weather and mountainous terrain. Being contested at all times means changing how we think about command posts. That's another lesson from Ukraine. In Iraq and Afghanistan, we got used to having large, static operations centers, even at the company level. That's all gone now. Our command posts aren't going to have stadium seats anymore. They must be agile, more dispersed, and be able to move at a moment's notice. The Russians have learned this the hard way, that a large stationary command post is a dead one. This means we're going to need leaders who can operate on intent with mission command type orders. This is where the American Army is blessed because we have the world's greatest non-commissioned officers corps. And I would ask all the NCOs here to stand, and even the new ones, and we'll give you a hand. This is how we get cohesive teams that are highly trained, disciplined, and fit, who are ready to fight and win. This is how we train soldiers to be masters of their craft and get after foundational readiness in tactical units. Ukraine has reinforced what many of us already knew, that precision fires are critical for large-scale combat operations. And this is why long-range precision fires remain our #1 modernization priority. HIMARS has been a game changer in Ukraine, and that's a weapon system with about a 75-kilometer range. Now imagine how much the game changes when we start employing precision strike missiles from a HIMARS platform with a 500K range, or we employ the soon-to-be fielded mid-range capability that can sink ships from over 1,000 kilometers. Or we employ a hypersonic missile capability that can travel thousands of kilometers with pinpoint accuracy. I can envision a future Army that gives combatant commanders the option of establishing no movement, no fly, or no sail zones from the land. Our 5 multi-domain task forces will be the units tasked organized to provide our combatant commanders with these anti-access and aerial denial capabilities. In addition to long-range precision fires, they will provide long-range precision effects through intelligence, information, cyber, electronic warfare, and space operations. Last year, we set up the first multi-domain task force at Joint Base Lewis-McChord, aligned to Indo-PACOM. And the second multi-domain task force was established in Europe. And we just activated the 3rd multi-domain task force in Hawaii, and we are in the process of choosing basing locations, which I know many will be interested in, for the remaining 2. Soon we'll field the first multi-domain task force with the Army's first hypersonic missiles. These new organizations are providing multiple options for combatant commanders and multiple dilemmas for our adversaries. You know, the war in Ukraine is also highlighting the importance of well-coordinated combined arms. You know, we're putting a lot of money into combined arms and making sure we can protect our soldiers on the battlefield. We are improving the Abrams tank, and we're replacing the Bradley fighting vehicle. We are fielding mobile protected firepower, and this spring we will award the Phase 3 and Phase 4 contracts for the optionally manned fighting vehicle to 3 vendors. We have issued prototypes of the robotic combat vehicle to our first unit in FY22, and in 23 we'll equip our first unit with the Armored Multi-Purpose Vehicle, the AMP-V. And for those interested in future vertical lift, we expect prototypes of the future armed reconnaissance aircraft, FARA, to fly by the end of 2023. And within the next few months, we'll down select for the future long-range assault aircraft, FLRAA, to 1 vendor. We're building a resilient and reliable Army network that can work in the dirt because the network underpins everything we're doing. In FY23, we're equipping our first units with the new integrated air and missile defense systems. And as I have highlighted many times, we are aggressively looking for innovative ways to get after the threat of lethal drones. We are seeing that lethal drones are being employed across the spectrum, from violent extremists to great power adversaries. And we are going to need a robust counter-UAS capability everywhere and all the time. And for soldier lethality, we're issuing the prototypes of the next generation squad weapons in FY23 to begin replacing the M4 and the SAR. And we remain committed to fielding the Integrated Visual Augmentation System, IVAS, what I view as one of the most transformational capabilities for our soldiers on the battlefield. And tying all of our modernization efforts together is Project Convergence 22. It's our annual experiment and campaign of learning that's kicked off this week. Like last year, Project Convergence will include every service of the Joint Force. And this year, we'll incorporate allies and partners as well. We are getting great results from putting our modernization systems into the hands of soldiers as soon as possible. Soldiers from USAPAC, the 3rd Armored Corps, 82nd Airborne Division, and the 1st Cavalry Division. An experiment with tactical units in the dirt is how we are getting after the speed, the range, and the convergence that we need for decision dominance and overmatch. Because in the future, we are not going to be outgunned, we are not going to be outranged, and we're not going to be overmatched as a fighting force. We are working closely with industry and delivering on our 6 modernization priorities at the speed of relevance. And we remain on track for 24 and 23. 24 signature systems in the hands of soldiers through fielding or testing in FY23. We have been consistent and we have been persistent, and we are getting it done. You know, we learned over the past few years that there are really 4 factors for assessing an Army's potential for success on the battlefield. First, their capability. Do they have the right modernized weapon systems to fight? Second, their capacity. Do they have enough of these weapon systems and at the scale? And third, competence. Can their soldiers use them effectively? And fourth, and most importantly, do their soldiers, NCOs, and leaders have the will to fight? And that's the hardest to measure. And this is where our Security Force Assistance Brigades are paying great dividends. These small teams of highly trained and disciplined officers and NCOs are helping to build the capabilities, the capacity, and the competence of the conventional forces of our allies and partners. We saw this last winter as soldiers from the 4th SFAB partnered with security forces in Georgia, Latvia, North Macedonia, Poland, and Romania. And this training reinforces a strong will to fight. We have learned this in Ukraine, where one side has a strong will to fight and the other side doesn't. And you can buy the most expensive weapon systems, but you can't buy courage on the battlefield. And you can buy equipment, but you can't buy commitment. And that's why, at the end of the day in our Army, it's about people and people first. It's our soldiers in the active Army, our Guard and Reserve. It's about our families, our Army civilians, and our soldiers for life, our veterans and retirees. And people are our greatest strength and our most important weapon system. And we can transform our doctrine, we can stand up new organizations, we can modernize our weapon systems, but if we don't get the people right, the people in the right jobs at the right time, the rest isn't enough. So we must win the war for talent, and it has never been more important. And that's why the Secretary and I are advocating for a call to service, inspiring young men and women to serve our country. And this effort in the Army is being informed by our first principles. We'll not sacrifice quality for quantity. We'll not lower our standards, and we will invest in Americans who want to serve so they can meet our standards. Because no one can unlock a person's full potential like the United States Army. And we need to open the Army up to America. We live in these wonderful gated communities called military installations, and we need to get back out into our local communities. Because what we're finding is exposure to the Army matters. 83% of our new recruits come from military families, and 44% come from high schools with JROTC programs. And that tells us that young people are more likely to serve when they're already familiar with the Army. When I talk to recruiters, they tell me their biggest hurdles are recruits who can't pass the ASVAB or meet our physical fitness requirements. And that's why we stood up the Future Soldier Prep Course at Fort Jackson 2 months ago. And it's too early to tell, but if we keep getting the results we've gotten so far, we'll be scaling the course to other locations like Benning, Sill, and Leninwood. And this is a fundamental shift in how we do business, because the recruits in the prep course aren't just rising to the occasion to meet our standards. Some of them are actually rising above. And they're taking on leadership roles when they get to initial military training. And we want every parent in this country to know that the Army is a pathway to success for their kids both in and out of uniform. We want every young person to know that the Army is a path to endless opportunities. You could be anything you want to be in the Army. In fact, you could be all you can be. Maybe. I think I heard that before. You know, they say every generation has its heroes. And I would like to give an update on one of my personal heroes, Jim Pee Wee Martin. And Jim jumped into Normandy on D-Day at the young age of 23. And he fought across Europe with his band of brothers from the 101st Airborne Division through Operation Market Garden in Bastogne. And I had the honor of meeting Jim at the 70th anniversary of D-Day. He was then 93 years young, and he returned to Normandy to jump in for the second time. And he said it was a lot better this time because no one was shooting at him. There it goes. But you know, this year, I'm sad to report that Jim is no longer with us. He died last month on Patriot Day at the age of 101. 101. He was a screaming eagle to the end. the age of 101. And he was laid to rest 3 weeks ago at Dayton Natural Cemetery with over 500 Screaming Eagles in attendance. And Jim was a member of this greatest generation, a generation of Americans who rose to the challenge they faced, who raised their right hand and asked what they could do for their country, who were as heroic as they were humble. And although I'm saddened by Jim's passing, I am inspired by the soldiers and NCOs that we just recognized. I am inspired by the soldiers and NCOs who are serving with distinction around the world in harm's way so we can enjoy this event in our way of life. And I'm inspired by the soldiers and NCOs who have committed to living up to the legacy of great soldiers like Jim Martin. And I'm inspired because I know if we are called upon to protect this nation, to protect this free world like generations before us, I know that our soldiers are ready. How about a hand for our soldiers? We are the world's greatest fighting force because we have the world's greatest soldiers and non-commissioned officers, and we're going to keep it that way because winning does matter. I could not be more proud to be the Chief of Staff of this United States Army. God bless all of our Gold Star families, our wounded warriors, and our soldiers serving in harm's way. In the Army, it's about people first, winning matters, and we do remain Army strong. Thank you.
Yeah, and you thought the Sergeant Major Grinston show was over. You know, we started with awards, and I think we need to end with some awards. So Chiefs talk about the greatest soldiers we've ever had, and they still exist. During the competition of the best squad, what most people didn't realize, we actually ran an expert infantry badge, expert soldier badge, and an expert field medical badge. And during that competition, there were 3 soldiers that were awarded that badge. And as we close, Chief, could you come back up? And I'd like to recognize these 3 soldiers. And since you did earn your EIB, I think it'd be awesome that you would pin these 3 soldiers with their EIB. So those 3 soldiers that earned the Expert Infantry Badge, please come forward and let's pin those on you right now.
PFC Derek Peterson, 3rd Squadron, 2nd Cavalry Regiment. Sergeant Tyler Singletary, 3rd Squadron, 2nd Cavalry Regiment. And Specialist Jonathan Woolsey, 1st Battalion, 27th Infantry Regiment, 25th Infantry Division.
Well, I'll tell you, it doesn't get much better than that. Awards, recognition of those great soldiers, and finishing up with Expert Infantry Badge. And Chief, thank you very much. Unbelievable. We stand ready to support you.